what sort of tips would you give a prospective home buyer now?
And houses are appreciating. We don't have enough houses in Acadiana. Don't look at the national average. Don't look at the national builders. We're a very specific, tiny little market. So talk to your mortgage lender locally and your realtor locally, because we can help you find exactly what you need. But if you wait for rates to go down or insurance to go down, you're going to miss out multiple times, and you're just going to keep renting or be stuck in a place you hate. Nobody reads anymore. We all want to hear it. So you have to have good audio.
That's also true.
I mean, it blew
It's
my
kind
mind.
of a balance because...
So now at least the younger first-time home buyers, I'm like, just look for resale. Like, I know you love it now. Yeah. So Derek, I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
I've watched a couple of these podcasts now. Where did the inspiration for the name of your...
What would Nicole Bringard's podcast be called?
So that's a good question. I think about it all the time. I want to say Bringard's, but I can't say that on the podcast. You want...
That is a thing.
Because when I first moved here, there was some
you probably weren't used to that when you moved here.
I was not used to that. So when we went to some parties, I was like, okay, this happens. Okay.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Nest Podcast. Today's guest is Nicole Bringard, realtor with Katie Real Estate. Nicole, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I'm very excited that you're here. I don't know if I've told you enough, but I definitely noticed when you started changing up your marketing last year. I think it was last year, or maybe, last year. You started posting quite a bit of video content on social media.
Yeah.
Where did you get the inspiration to do it?
Really, it actually was Jim. Jim started doing it. We're seeing a lot more activity with listings and just people reaching out and commenting. So, but it took me a year and a half. Like, that was my goal for 2020, maybe 2021. And I finally did it last year. He made it really easy. We have some tools at our office to do it. And then really he's just like, just got to jump in. So my first videos were a couple rough. You can still tell that I'm looking at some captions and stuff, but it just makes everything easier. And they're informative. I'm getting more comfortable in front of the camera, because people were saying, we can hear your voice, but we want to see you looking at houses. So I've been working on that.
Shooting at home or shooting at work?
Shooting at home. I have found I still am not... there's a couple agents in town that are just naturals on camera that can do a video while they're taking a walk with some pointers. Okay. Not quite there yet. I do have a rig in my car that my son is working on to keep my phone with a specific case so I can drive hands-free. But I've only shot a few videos with that. So I'm getting a little better at getting out there, but it does still take me to psych myself up to start doing it.
It looks like you have it down at home. I didn't realize you were shooting at home all the time.
Most time.
So talk to me about your gear. Have you upgraded? Do you still shooting with the same stuff?
Literally the cheapest stuff I could get on Amazon. I got one ring light that stands up. I got 2 little clip-on mics that I think were $20 each.
Okay.
And then I do have one in my car too. So sometimes if I'm in my car, I see something, I can plug in my microphone. That I do feel like helps with the quality. Just
the mic.
Yeah, the mics help a lot.
I did notice when you made that change.
Yeah.
I can't say aesthetically, if I would go back and think about it, there's probably a point in time where you maybe changed something with the camera or the light, but I definitely noticed the audio, which is crazy because you think the biggest changes would be visual. When researching how to get started with all of this stuff and what I was going to buy, the one thing that I kept seeing over and over was the key to video is audio, which seemed paradoxical, at the time, but I noticed a big difference whenever you had made that change.
Well, and that actually is from my son also. I call him my IT guy. He's only 16. He did tell me when I was shooting without a microphone, he's like, Mom, nobody watches videos without listening. My big thing was having captions, because I'm used to looking at things at a meeting or maybe waiting in a waiting room. And he said, nobody reads anymore. We all want to hear it. So you have to have good audio.
That's also true.
I mean, it blew my mind.
It's kind of a balance, because I know there are times where I'll pull out the phone and it's easier. It's less distracting. If I can see the captions, scroll it. But you're right.
Yeah.
I also want to hear it.
Yeah. And
Like, hey, go read about this. Like, no, I want to watch a video.
no, and they all will. Anybody pretty much the generation below me or younger is doing that. And he said, and I had another person do a little more research. He said most people have either one AirPod in and they want to hear it. So you just can't have that wind. You can't have that tinny sound unless it's absolutely necessary. So I still do, like I said, carry the microphone in my car and then at my house. And I still haven't even used this setup at the office that is brand new. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I would need my son to come and help me be a cameraman for that.
Gotcha.
So we'll see.
And you were talking about Jim earlier, made it easy and encouraged everyone to do it. You're talking about Jim Cady.
Jim Cady, yeah, our broker. He gives us so many tools and so much training to help us succeed. And he just makes it really comfortable and gives us a lot of education and stuff for marketing. So yeah, he provided that, and I can pretty much do that. It's on my phone. It's teleprompter. And then we get updated market reports every week, so I can just pull from those. And They're very informative. I'm finding more and more people are actually listening to them. It just took me a year of doing it, and now more people are asking about it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I've had the failure to launch thing I mentioned in another episode where it took about a year basically to kind of get rolling. I just assumed one day you woke up and just made it happen. No. But so we'll go with that though. I'll give you credit for doing that. Yeah. That'll be your superpower, taking action.
Yeah. It's a slow roll though.
Okay. So let's get tactical for people tuning in, because it likely will be a lot of people from, within our industry, but really anyone that needs to produce content for work and maybe inspire some people who do this just for fun or for, casually. Big takeaways would be just hit record.
Yeah, really.
It sounds like you got into a groove, so make it as frictionless as possible.
Yes. I'll do maybe 3 videos at a time. I'll just sit in my home office, turn on the light. I do have that lighting set up so it won't change at all. And then I'll just do 3 videos back to back. And then my marketing girl can just space them out throughout the week. So I time block weekly to do.
Okay. So time videoing. Blocking.
Yes. And that is another thing that Jim taught me that I saw my business get excelling more when I started really sticking with my time blocks. Every day, every week, I have times for prospecting, I have times for calling. And then for me, it was the dreaded, I must make 3 videos this week. Like that was something that I started knocking out on like a Monday or Tuesday. So I would just embrace the suck, do it, and then be done for the week and feel good. And my marketing girl stopped bothering me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Embrace the suck. I've heard another expression, which apparently has been around for ages, called eat the frog.
Oh.
Apparently, like if you do the hardest thing that you're dreading the most, eat the frog. I saw a buddy of mine has a podcast. I had to Google it. I had never heard of that.
But that sounds right. I do try and get all of my unpleasant calls and stuff done in the morning.
The harder things.
Yeah. Stuff that you don't want to do. It's like, I got to make this call, or I know I'm dreading the video. So I was like, just do this. And the rest of the day, it's like, look, at least I got the thing that I was kind of not looking forward to over and done. But now I just tell the kids and my husband, I'm like, I'm going to the office. I'll be busy for about 20 minutes.
Yeah. Probably frees up. It's like carrying baggage around because it's constantly in the back of your mind.
It is constantly. Yes. Yeah. And I missed 2 weeks over the holiday and I felt it.
Really?
It's like exercising. You have to just keep doing it.
Yeah.
But the fact that I'm seeing traction with it from my marketing, I was like, man, I'm noticing that I'm getting a little bit of a lag with involvement and engagement on social media. So I was like, I can tell there's a difference when I'm not posting.
What was the lag time between the time you started posting and the subsequent times where people started reaching out to you?
Probably
not even internally, like externally, peers.
8 to 9 months. It wasn't. I don't have a very big social media, so It was probably 8 to 9 months, and then I started getting some comments and from out of the state and some different things, and I've had a few leads come in that way. It's going to take a while. I didn't have a huge social media base. Mine was more Sphere.
And not so much leads, but maybe you had a peer in the industry, or maybe even people from your brokerage, where they would come to you and say, "Hey, I really like what you're doing. I feel like I need to do that now? Or has this become an integral part of your business? What, any of those things where you were like, you just started becoming a mentor, I guess, in a way?
A little bit, a little bit. It's been actually more my partners like you, my inspectors too. You know, internally, we're not seeing it so much
Okay.
because there is a lot of agents doing it. Jim's always been on the forefront of the next thing for marketing.
Sure.
So all the agents are doing it, but a lot of my partners, you know, and a lot of the attorneys, local title attorneys too, have been commenting when I see them in
Nice.
public. They're like, "Oh, I saw your video of this. I
Sorry.
saw that. You know, then I saw your dog." So I'm getting comments when I'm out in public more, but it took
That's
about
good.
8 to 9, 10 months.
But it happened.
It did, but you have to be consistent
Yeah.
because you know they don't watch everyone.
Right. And you mentioned too, well, yeah, I mean, the algorithms control things.
Yeah,
I don't see, sometimes I have to go and actively search for maybe someone I hadn't kept in touch with in a while because I'm just not seeing it in the feeds. So if you know how things go, if you're not in front of somebody all the time, you forget.
yeah.
So you got to hope that for every 5, somebody catches one.
One, yeah, and that's why you need more. And it's supposed to be posting. I think what 4 or 5 times a day. I can't do that while I'm working.
Yeah.
But the videos I do get more interaction actually. So and I'm noticing people on the weekends. My demographic tends to look on the weekends, and then the next week I'll get a lot of comments on something I did a week or 2 ago because they find they're like, I'm catching up on my social media and I saw this.
There you
So
go.
it's just it's really funky how it works, and the algorithm definitely just the more content we have, the more videos you'll pop up, and then I do like a funny random one every now and then.
Well, you do it well. I would tell you, I see it as almost a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, it's easy.
Don't compare yours to everyone else is doing it. But the difference is, which is, I would say, probably the key tip that everyone probably knows, but it's helpful for you to share with anyone watching is you have to be consistently doing it.
Yeah.
If somebody does 4 a year really well, are they going to remember you, or they're going to that person, or are they going to remember you that
Yeah,
did it
just remember a video.
35 times a year?
Yeah, and I'm
Top of mind.
yeah, and my marketing girl's wonderful too. She'll remind me. She's like, "Hey, we're behind a little bit." So if I do miss a time block for the week, because sometimes we get off, we know things can get crazy. So I have my time blocking schedule, and then if I blow it off, I have another person that's holding me accountable. That's helpful too.
It is.
Yeah, you need somebody else there, another teammate partner to help you with that.
It is. So you mentioned when your demographic looks at your stuff. What's your demographic? Because you're a Southern California girl, right?
Yes, it's a lot of people about my age, 40s and up.
Okay.
And then it's been mostly people in the neighborhoods I've lived in. I've lived here now 24 years, actually, as of January. So a lot of my sphere and demographic reach out because they see me doing things that they're just like, we never pictured you being a realtor and being on camera with what we knew before. So that tends to be where a lot of my work and business comes from. And now I'm actually selling to their grandkids.
Nice.
Well, that's strange, but lovely at the same time.
Nice.
So that's why I felt I needed to embrace more video, more social media, because I mean, actually the guy that I'm referring you today, he's like, I don't even check email. I just do text. It's like, well, you need to get an email account for work if you're going to buy a house, just like you need at least 5 checks. So it's just, marketing, getting a broader range of people.
Sure. I said Southern California. I actually forgot specifically where were you born? Where were you born and raised?
Oh, I was born in Fort Belvoir, Virginia, actually, when my dad was working at the Pentagon. Moved to California when I was 3.
Okay.
That was Central California, Lompoc specifically. He launched rockets and then worked on the space shuttle program that never launched on the West Coast. Wow. But it was pretty cool. Like, I got to see the shuttles fuel up and everything. They just, once the Challenger went, they scrubbed it. And then we moved to Huntington Beach when I was 12, lived there. So that was Orange County.
Orange County.
Yeah. So
everybody's heard of Orange County, California.
Yeah. I was in Lompoc at the Bend of California till I was 12. And then Orange County till I went to college. And then college was in Riverside in the desert.
Nice.
And then stayed
So that's
there.
a long journey to Louisiana. How'd you get here?
So my husband that I met while we were in school, he was in the Navy. So he was stationed in San Diego. And so we're set up on a blind date. And
what?
yeah.
Were
Blind
you
date
really?
on Valentine's Day. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. My roommate and his a guy on the boat met in Rosarito, Mexico, because that was like 2 hours away. And then anyway, they were like, well, let's set these two up. They seem kind of cool. We had a blind date on Valentine's Day. We dated for 2 years. He went on a Westpac. He was in the Navy for 6 years. He'll kill me if I get the dates wrong. And then
Isn't that supposed to be the other way around?
Correct. I know. He's better with those details. But we dated for a couple of years, and then he got out of the Navy, went back to Michigan. I stayed in California. I was like, bye. So we were apart for about a year. And then he went to
California, Michigan, end up in Louisiana.
But I never lived in Michigan. No, he went
Well,
to
that's where
Michigan.
he's from, though.
Yes. And then
you end up down here.
Then he went to school in California because he missed me.
Okay.
So he found dive school.
Okay.
And then he did dive school a year, but he's like, guess what? There's no diving off of California. It's only in the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
So I was like, I said, bye again. So he lived here for 3 months, and then I missed him. And I was like, well, why don't I just try living in Louisiana? My company at the time had an office here. They were looking for a remote position.
It's still warm and sunny.
I love it. Well, we stayed. We're only going to be here a year, but we love it. It's perfect for our family. It's perfect for kids. I mean, I wouldn't go back at all.
You knew you didn't want to do the snow, but you were open to coming here.
Yeah.
And then it stuck.
Yeah. But I really said, do you want to visit first? I said, no, just get all my stuff and go. But my family was, before I stayed in California, we moved 16 times when I was younger. So, but I was little. My parents moved us.
But still.
So it wasn't a big deal. But I loved California, but I loved my husband more.
Look at that.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of remembering that you told me about the blind date, but it sounded new when you said it.
Yeah.
And the reason I reacted the way I reacted is that's how my wife and I met, also on a blind date.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot we had that in common.
And actually, the guy that introduced us just sold his house in Nebraska and moved to Mississippi, and he's a realtor. So he's hit us up a couple times. So were Instagram reels inspire him to become a realtor? A little bit, actually.
See?
And the weather. And he came to visit us, and he was like, it is really cold.
See? So you did something that was going to help your family, and you impacted his. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, likely in a positive way. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
So let's get back to the trek over to Louisiana. Mm-hmm. Your husband, you said he went to dive school. No diving in California. There's diving in the Gulf of Mexico.
At the time, yeah.
At the time. So he's a commercial diver?
He is a commercial diver. It's a very small, specific type of job. It's a very
small community.
It's a small community, yeah, around the world. They all kind of know each other. But there was a lot of work at the time from his dive school in the Gulf of Mexico. California, there wasn't any work. Okay. So it just...
Like deep sea diving.
It's deep, yes.
That's where they go through like the decompression chambers, and sometimes I'm sure they have varying degrees of depth that they go down. I've heard that sometimes it takes like days to come up.
Yes, if they do saturation diving, it does. That's where they're in a enclosed environment up to 30 days. Actually, it can be longer than that, but it's like a big tank. He pretty much does surface diving, but it's a specialized helmet. And then they do, they go down, they'll work on bottom, and then they have to have decompression stops just to make sure that they're okay with the blood gases. Yeah,
because they can explode.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, they get banned.
You mentioned that a lot of people it's probably a small pool of people. They go on jobs all over the place. They're in the same trainings, probably work in close proximity together. Yeah. A lot of downtime. Probably as well.
Yes, but it's downtime, but they're still together on a rig or on a boat. So they have a lot of time to shoot the breeze. I think he liked it because it's very much like the military Navy. You get to be really close with your group.
Sure.
And so they all have a lot in common. They all have a little bit of a wild streak to do something like that. But
they get to know each other.
They get to know each other.
They talk about family.
They talk about family.
Which means he talked about you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which means you probably worked with a couple of handfuls of divers, I would
I
imagine,
do.
that
And
wanted to become homeowners.
yes, I've been really fortunate because it can be a lot of people that are transplants. A lot of divers are not from here.
Okay.
They get tired of living in an apartment. They have a lot of gear because they're self-employed.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them just are like, man, I can't leave my $10,000 dive hat in my car or in the carport and I have to lug it up every night when I come in at 2 a.m.
That's true.
So
Because it's not cheap.
they're not cheap. And then they can get, if they're offshore, sometimes 3 to 6 months, they have a lot of money and they're like, well, where can I put it? And they will talk to some other divers that have been around a while and they're like, real estate is really one of the best investments you can make still.
Sure.
And so I get a lot of referrals from my husband, some superintendents. It's usually maybe about 3 or 4 divers a year, at least, I sell a house to, even when it's slow.
I think if I was a diver, what I would do, it's a good investment. They can kind of you're a business owner.
Yeah.
At that point, I mean, I know some of these guys, I've heard stories, they're only home 3 months out of the year.
Correct.
If you're single, I mean, I would almost buy a house and then rent it out.
Yeah, and most of them do that. Actually, the last 2 I've had, even they were single. They're like, look, I need somewhere to park my money and my toys for the few times I am home.
Sure.
And the last 2 guys I spoke with, one actually last night said he was home, I think 63 days last year. So, but he was able to get everything he wanted. He loves his house. He was very easy because I was able to reach him because my husband works with them, and he also takes instruction well because it's a very regimented job, kind of. But also he went with the flow, and like a lot of divers understand things change, and most of them actually are pretty handy, so they're not scared of a fixer-upper. That's also nice too. So they are all able to park their stuff. Yeah, and the last 2 divers, actually, they just left everything in their apartment and just moved in their trucks, motorcycles, and then bought all new right afterwards. But they are very good about not buying a single thing once I tell them we're starting to shop for a house.
So I would say a point of focus that you could do, either if you haven't already, starting this year or next year, is everyone that's bought a house, when they come back with these,
No.
you can't really spend it. I mean, you don't have internet underwater. So if you come back with the big paychecks, have them go buy some rentals.
They do.
Let the money, let somebody else invest in.
Well, and they usually rent to the other divers that are new.
Okay.
So a lot of them will rent out rooms. It's very much like college dorm idea because some people come in international. They don't know how long they're going to be. So they do rooms. So most of mine have been 3 bedroom, 2 bath, no matter what. They're like, I got 2 guys that are going to stay and we just rotate out. It's hilarious. And we have divers selling to other divers, which you've helped with a couple of deals for that. So, but it's a small little community. They talk, they gossip like high school girls.
So what you need to do is you need to set the bar for one to buy a second one, but have that one exclusively a rental.
Yeah. And that's what we're doing. We just started getting to that now. It was very slow. Oil field was very slow, as you know. Was it 2012 Macondo? That was really a tough time for that industry. A lot of divers got out, but we're having a lot coming back in. So I hate to say new generation of divers are all in their 20s, because my husband and our group are in our 50s, and then they're in their 20s.
Gotcha.
So those young men, though, I'm like, look, just have a 5 to 8 year plan. In Acadia, I know you're going to stay in your house 5 to 8 years. That's average. Sure. Nationwide, people move less often, but here people either want more land or less land, more to maintain or less.
I think it depends on which home purchase they're on.
Yep.
What's the first time home buyer? Is it 4 to 7 years or 4 to 6?
4 to 6. It really. And
so you get your second one? Yeah.
And for me, I've found it depends if they're single or a couple.
Also true.
That's really when my biggest change is hit. A lot of times, if it's a single, once they become a couple, they want to change. Yeah.
Selling 2 houses, buying one together, selling one, someone's not renting anymore, they're buying one together.
Correct. So that's been an interesting dynamic because there's been a big shift since COVID.
Yeah.
Huge.
One thing that I've been focusing on is in instances like that, because I have had a handful. The math doesn't always work out, but it's trying to get them to hold on to it.
All of them. I'm like, ideally.
But I think it's becoming more mainstream, whether they're seeing it on social media or they're having, another friend who maybe worked with someone like me who gave them good guidance and said, hey, look, hold on to it.
Yeah. And you've
Oh, I
been
can't
really
afford it.
helpful with that.
As long as you have somebody paying your rent,
Yep.
we get to keep it out of the purview of our math,
Yeah.
and then they can unload it whenever they want.
Yeah. That's my ideal with people. And actually the group, when I work with divers or first time home buyers, I do look at them. I'm like, look, this will not be your forever home.
right.
Let's just look for something where there is good resale value. I know you're thinking this is it, but
It never is. We did the same thing.
it never is,
It never is.
So I know you think you maybe want to just have a single wide mobile home on 6 acres so you can just shoot a gun whenever you want.
That is a thing.
Because when I first moved here, there was some
You
the
probably
guys,
weren't used to that when you moved
I
here.
was not used to that. So when we went to some parties, I was like, okay, this happens. Okay, didn't know that. But whenever there's situations change, it was very hard to unload that property. So now at least the younger first time home buyers, I'm like, just look for resale. Like I know you love it now,
Yeah.
but you can buy that second property in the country where you can ride your side by side later and rent this out.
That's right.
This is maybe a good school zone or maybe close to shopping. So kind of look at that when you're buying your first house for sure.
Yeah, resale. Like, so if we were to define like what helps with resale, living in a good school district, living in a neighborhood, not just a one-off house
Right.
out in the country. I know sometimes I'll driving down the interstate or Highway 90, kind of getting out. I mean, we see some McMansions, homes that are easily $2, $3, $4 million. And it's like, if those people ever go to sell, like who are they going to sell? That's such a specific buyer.
It is.
Maybe an amazing house, but you can't change the location.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be perfect.
Yeah.
So I often wonder like what their estate planning looks like just to keep the property in the house, because like, what if you can't sell it?
So when I first moved here, that's what I thought too. And my girlfriends from California, they're like, look at all this land. Look at all this. Look at that $1 million house. It's like, but it's on the freeway.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're thinking, but usually that was what estates that handed it down in the family and they just kept building on. But for most of my clients, I'm like, always look at resale, even if you think it's your forever home.
So neighborhoods, school districts,
Shopping.
close to shopping. What else?
And commute for most of my work too is people that are driving either oil field offshore
Okay.
or into Baton Rouge and Lake Charles. So it's I've got a lot more people hitting 90 and I-10 now, so the commute, people are back in the office. A lot of companies are bringing people back. So I've got clients that are like, man, just getting from Youngsville to downtown Lafayette is such a nightmare. I need to move back into town.
Into town.
For me, that's not far.
Sure.
But it is kind of a commute. I mean, especially when basketball season and sports are going on.
A lot of red lights.
Yes.
A lot of red lights. Have you noticed when you help clients kind of on the outskirts of town, they really fall in love with the property? Have you had maybe people buy and then contact you later saying, hey, we want to move closer into town with complaints? So much, everything's on the internet now. And maybe like we have fiber internet here.
Yeah.
Places that can only get satellite internet and say, well, hey, look, since I work from home now and I can't reliably do video conferencing or whatever it is that they're doing. Have you had anybody
We had a huge shift. Yeah.
like that where they're like, okay, I love this house, but we have to get closer. I need services.
Oh yeah. We had quite a few, and some of my listings in Sunset were kind of a hard sale because the Cox was 5 miles away. So they had to do satellite internet or satellite for their work, and they're like, it just is not feasible.
Yeah.
So they did have to move into
It
town.
wasn't a thing, and then it became a thing.
Yeah. For all the schools, for
the kids.
COVID was a huge shift. And a lot of people realized that like we just need to be closer to services. And even people that do like hunting, they're like, well, I would rather just have a camp, a place to go for the weekend. So that's another second homes or properties. I'm seeing people want a little something maybe 2 to 3 hours away versus
Instead of having everything all in one, have something
They can go
close
on
and
the
then have
weekends.
something further away.
Yep,
Gotcha.
like northern parishes for hunting and fishing.
Something recreational. Yeah. Well, this is the
Yeah.
outdoorsman state. So
Yeah, but before people would, live in St. Landry Parish and be fine, but with COVID and work, it was just not working. Literally, people weren't able to work.
Yeah.
So Derek, I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
I've watched a couple of these podcasts now. Where did the inspiration for the name of your podcast come from?
The Nest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I thought about that because I don't know, for those who don't know me, they're probably wondering like this podcast about health, wealth, life, and money, and real estate. So where does the nest come from? So as you know, my last name's Robin. It's French for the English word robin, which is a bird. And I was inspired by the family. My wife would call the kids baby birds whenever they were little. They're getting almost to middle school age now. And then when they were old enough to talk, they would call her mama bird when she would call them baby bird. And, so our home just kind of became the nest.
Yeah.
So hence the Nest podcast. If you had a podcast, so you were part of my inspiration to start, albeit it took me a minute. I do feel better knowing that it took you a while, but again, I'm gonna give you credit for like starting right away. Okay. But if you were to do one, what would Nicole Bringard's podcast be called?
So that's a good question. I think about it all the time. I want to say Bringard's, but I can't say that on a podcast.
About buying with Bringard.
Buying with Bringard. Yeah, we could do that probably.
Depends on if you want to be generic or you want to speak to a certain audience. So it sounds like you work with young divers and their friends.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned like the 40 plus crowd. So if you were to, I guess you could tailor it. Or where would one be with overlap?
I know. I think so. Well, people that know me also know that I do have the language of a sailor. So I do have to edit myself a lot when I'm on TV.
Well, you did marry a guy from the Navy.
I know.
Yeah.
So I do have to edit. Be careful. So, but I have a language of a sailor.
Okay. So those would be, so that came to your mind first. So that's fun.
No, isn't that terrible? Or drinking with divers, because that's where we come up with a lot of ideas for stuff too. Because a big part of the culture that my husband and I like here is socializing and eating.
Sure.
We both do not cook, but everybody we know does. I think we both gained at least 25 pounds the first year we moved here. And it's usually over beer, outside. So probably drinking with divers too could be it.
Okay.
Then we would hear some colorful metaphors, some of the stuff come out of their mouths.
I dig it. I dig it. So I have kids that are 8 and 10 years old. I think you have one that's about to finish up high school and one that's at least halfway through college.
Yeah.
What kind of advice could you give me and other professionals in the industry that kind of do that work-life balance thing to get me from age 10 to age 20? How did things change for you like during that decade?
It's crazy.
Of them growing up.
One thing that did gravitate me towards this job is you have a flexible schedule. Everybody says realtors have all this free time. We don't really, but we can make our own schedule. And to just be able
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It's very true, but I hadn't heard it phrased that way.
Yeah. It's, I work after hours. I work on weekends. So I'm able to be there to pick up my kids from school sometimes. I'm able to go to some of the, especially when they were little, I was able to go to events. Like you could see your son singing at school. That was so lovely. Made everybody cry.
Well, thank you.
Because he was so lovely. But it just, as they get older, just learn to pivot. When my kids were your kid's age, I was running the roads 24/7. I would recommend getting a very comfortable vehicle that has a lot of snacks in it. And having outlets for your computer and having maybe a hotspot for your car. And then as they get older, it's kind of a weird shift because they don't need you anymore. So you have more free time for your work.
Okay.
So I actually
did yours start cooking for themselves?
Yeah.
Like microwave stuff, or they cook?
They cook, which is weird because Andrew and I don't. But I think because they've grown up with seeing people cook in our neighborhood. Like
Gotcha.
Lucas used to walk around the street and tell everybody I didn't feed him dinner. And we would feed him.
So they're going to be first generation Bringard cooks.
Cook-ishes, yes.
Cook-ishes.
Yeah. I mean, Georgia's doing less at school because she's in college, but Lucas likes flavor and he's tasting things. But just as they get older, pivot, their interests are going to change. I used to book out my work schedule for what sports they were playing. And then, when the season ended, stuff shifted. It's like, okay, well, we have all this karate gear at this karate family where I got some stuff from, some deals from. And then they're like, no, I kind of want a horseback ride. I was like, oh, okay. So everything's just shifting and pivoting.
Do you ever take them at any point on showings? Did you take them to closings?
Yes.
Stuff like that? Are they completely disinterested in what mom does for a living? Did they used to hate it and now maybe one of them is really interested? How did all that go?
So they hate it. They hate going on a showing. They would roll their eyes.
When they were little.
When they were little, even now. But my daughter moved out, so she's gone. But my son now will actually tell some of his friends that my mom sold that house and helped with that one. So Lucas pays attention more, but he's like, I don't have to go on the showing, right? You can just drop me off at Red's. And he's more interested in the technology.
Okay.
So that's the only reason why he's been more involved. But man, trying to get him to pull out some of my open house signs is I have to pay him.
So, well, that might be something for him to do. I mean, he's your social media tech guy.
He fixes phones and all that stuff. So yeah, he doesn't do the posting for social media, but he will tell me, he's like, Mom, this didn't look as good as this one. You know, he's the one that told me about the sound. He's
Okay.
the one that told me about angling a little bit more.
So he could be a consultant.
He is. I mean, I
Okay.
have been asking him when I try to edit things, and I get a lot of positive feedback from that. People can tell, oh, you tried to edit a video and splice some stuff together.
Okay.
He's the one that'll be like, hang on, just let me help you with that.
So yeah, I mean, has he expressed interest? Had you proposed to him like maybe this could be something he could do after he gets out of school for work?
Real estate, no.
I mean, the
Technical.
sounds like he's helping you a lot with some of the marketing things.
He is
So-
helping with marketing and IT stuff, my computer too. When stuff crashes, he'll be able to fix things, and when I have an issue posting. So yes.
But it sounds like he knows about camera angles, what looks aesthetically pleasing.
Hmm.
So if he would just learn, if you could teach him, or he could intern with you keep talking about your social media person, he could intern with her, learn some stuff. He'll bring some stuff to the table.
Yeah.
He's got a built-in network of people that he knows through mom.
I know. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean,
and then he can go buy all the food that he's cooking, and then you won't have to pay for it.
look, he's buying all that stuff.
And he's pretty tall. I'm sure he eats a lot.
Oh yeah, but he fixes, like, he just fixed his dad's iPhone yesterday. The screen broke, so he changes it out in like 20 minutes. So, but Georgia, no interest at all.
None at all.
No.
I wonder what I would be curious to know if we could like fast forward 2, 3, 4 years from now, when your oldest gets out of college, she goes to work, and then, I mean, she grew up watching you.
Mm.
So she had one parent that traveled a lot, and then you who kind of made your own schedule. She probably saw things that she did and didn't like about it when she was young, but she's going to be looking at things differently after she gets out into the workforce. I wonder if she'll come back to you and say, look, I couldn't appreciate what mom was doing
Yeah.
at the time, but I can see the merits of it now. And maybe she gets interested in it again.
Maybe.
I'm curious to see. I wonder about that for mine.
I think Lucas would be more into it because he has got the more entrepreneurial spirit, likes to do things at his own time. But when he makes a decision, like, he's very productive. George is I feel like she's 9 to 5, would want to sit at a desk.
9 to 5.
Yeah, because she sees her dad. Like, Andrew's been gone the first probably 10 years we lived here. He was offshore, 300 days average. So she didn't see him a lot. And then I worked from home, and now she sees me. Realtors, we kind of have to chase the carrot a lot.
Sure.
So there is a lot of,
It's navigating, balancing that with the time blocking and trying to be structured, but
Yep.
being flexible.
yes. And we did have to come up with a lot of rules with our family. Mom only brings the phone up when she's actually doing work. Like, I'm not scrolling on social media because I'm like, hang on, I have to put this on a calendar. I have to answer this client. I don't pick up the phone at the table unless I know like there's something really important. I'm like, I am waiting for a call. So I know that she would love to not be at beck and call of her daddy that was always call out, and her mom that has to, because half of our job is waiting for people to make a decision.
Sure.
So
And helping them make it
helping them make
and
it.
waiting,
Yes, and then waiting.
which is okay. But
Which is-
that's part of it.
And I love it. And that's like my personality. I love that. I love having people get to this next step. Lucas, though, he does see the joy. He's probably come more closings, and he sees the fun aspects also. So we'll see, because he also sees that it's money. He's like, I can make money, and he can use some social stuff. He can use some electronics.
Can help families.
He helps families, and he's big on that. He's very personable. So we'll see.
Okay. I know I've had conversations recently with my wife. She said, hey, you should really, like, when they're here, if I'm working after they get back from school, or it's a day we don't have practice, like, have them come sit in the office with you.
Mm-hmm.
You learn, some people learn by watching, some people learn by listening, some people learn by doing, some people do some combination of all of those, maybe all of them at the same time. And it really kind of opened my eyes. I was like, that would be, it would probably be productive, maybe not for work, but how to interact, right? How do adults interact?
Yeah.
What sorts of, how do people have conversations?
Yeah.
They're having different conversations now. They're young. They talk about Fortnite and those sorts of things, but it'll kind of let them peep into the world of,
reality.
Here's what the real world is like. Here's what adults talk about.
Yeah. And we did have, like, when we had the office before COVID, they were there more. Like, they'd come after school and sit around. So they actually heard us making calls. They could hear people negotiating things.
Sure.
So, actually, Lucas probably listened more now that I think about it because he is a big negotiator.
See,
because
he was listening.
Yeah, he really was, because he was at the office a lot more than Georgia. So, they learned to negotiate. Well, what if I do this? I do that. So,
But there's so many overlaps.
so many.
Again, it doesn't have to be what we do, but they could be negotiating, like trading baseball cards on the playground.
Yeah.
As simple as that. It's a skill. The kids see me doing this. They kind of inspired me. My wife got them into acting and stuff, but they see this. They're better at public speaking.
Yeah, that's huge.
They're better. Yeah, I took, what was it, communications at UL. It was Communications 200. I was a sophomore, first semester sophomore taking that class. It was all seniors, and the like last semester seniors, like fixing to graduate seniors. And I remember the instructor saying, "Everyone put it off until the end."
Yeah,
and I thought that was strange. I wouldn't say I'm an extreme extrovert, if you will, not an introvert, but it just seemed like a class that you would take. I waited tables in college, so I kind of had to talk to people anyway.
Yeah, I never did.
But I didn't realize that, like, that was one of a lot of realizations along the way about, like, how you're different, and everyone's different. That was one for me where I realized, like, people truly had a fear of
public speaking,
or
even just in front of 4 people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's for us. I got better when my daughter went to speech and debate. I found that I got better with real estate and standing up and talking in front of people and doing presentations, but she was doing that in middle school. So that inspired me to get out of my box a little bit too.
Earlier, we were talking about tips for realtors and social media creation. Let's talk about home buyers. What sort of tips would you give a prospective home buyer now? And how would they be different from a first-time home buyer to someone who maybe they're on their 3rd or 4th house, but they haven't bought in several years? What would you tell them about this market and how to win?
That's an excellent question. Really?
That's a lot. Sorry.
It's a lot, but I tell everybody, I was like, please talk to your lender, a banker. Nothing's the same. I said COVID years were a weird gap, but if you haven't bought a home for 10, 12 years, nothing's the same.
Yeah.
So really talk to your lender first. Tell me what you're looking for. We still have no inventory. Houses that are somewhat decent are starting to have multiple offers again.
Yeah.
So my biggest thing right now is you need to get your financing squared away, how you're going to do it. Because we have so few houses on the market, you're going to see a house you love. And if you haven't talked to a lender first, you're going to lose it. And it's going to suck. No fun.
I feel like there's a lag effect. We were fortunate to help a lot of families over the last handful of years. And now, you always have the early adopters.
Yep.
Yeah, so those would be the people who purchased when money was cheap.
Yep.
Those are the people who didn't purchase, but they refinanced into lower cost loans. And then you have the ones who knew they needed to do it, but didn't. The late implementers.
Yep. And that was a lot of our people we had last summer who we had quite a few people looking hot and heavy. The interest rate soared and they all stopped and decided not to do anything.
That's right. You know what happened to those people?
They're
when
not.
they were looking at the $250,000 house last year. That house isn't worth 250 anymore.
I know. And I'm
It's
like,
worth more.
you should have. I know. We can't find the house that they were under contract for.
That's right.
So a lot of my clients that stopped, waited, people that delayed, I'm like, look, there's no crystal ball. We don't know what's going on. Homeowners insurance is kind of killing it right now. But I said a lot of my lenders are able to find ways to help a house be affordable. Let's just see what you really need. It's get with the lender first, because the minute the house comes up, I will show it to you. I feel like we're getting right back to COVID again with the sense of urgency, because people have seen that. But like all my people is like, the house is going to go under contract in a minute. You need to sign or not.
I agree with you that there's no crystal ball. I think the big thing, we don't know when it's going to hit.
Right.
But as things start to taper down, including inflation, but
Right.
interest rates maybe lower some, maybe insurance will lower some. What is going to come is at some point, it's going to get more palatable for more people. And then what's going to happen, it's going to drive the prices up.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that what I'm running across is not everyone has enough money for closing saved up.
Yep.
What's going to end up happening is, as soon as the demand increases, the sellers won't be giving away as much.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about the price of the house. I'm talking about extra money for closing costs.
Closing costs, that's going to be a problem.
So I had mentioned in another episode, we talked about like, how do you quantify the cost of waiting?
Right.
On a very elementary level, if you were to just look at data, I'm sure the local RAA has the information. What are the average amount of seller concessions and closing costs for prepaid insurance and taxes is provided by a seller over the last 12 months? Come up with a number. Let's say it's $6,000.
Yeah.
As soon as the market flips, that's gone.
That's gone. Yeah.
So doing something whenever you can. If you need something and you should do.
Yep.
If you try to time something and wait 6 months and then that flips, that costs you $6,000.
It minimum. And
minimum.
What I'm having a lot of people happen right now is their rents are increasing because landlords are finally able to increase rent again. So they're now looking and saying, wait, my rent is going up. So even though when you and I quoted somebody at 7% last fall, now their rent is $1,300 a month, when that was what their mortgage would have been if they bought last fall.
Right.
So I told people, I just telling everybody, I was like, look, interest rates will maybe stabilize, maybe go up, hopefully not much go down. The only unknown really is homeowners insurance, but houses are appreciating. We don't have enough houses in Acadiana. Don't look at the national average. Don't look at the national builders. We're a very specific, tiny little market. So talk to your mortgage lender locally and your realtor locally, because we can help you find exactly what you need. But if you wait for rates to go down or insurance to go down, you're going to miss out multiple times, and you're just going to keep renting or be stuck in a place you hate.
Cost of the home's going to go up. Rent's going to go up, and you get nothing.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I notice whenever I'm talking, and I can't see them, but I can hear it, when they say, I'll have a prospective buyer, just continue to want to rent because it's safer.
Yeah.
Or I'm nervous about buying a house. That's usually, I think that's usually the segue. I'm nervous about buying a house. So I'll ask them what are you nervous about?
What are you nervous about?
And they said, well, I'm nervous about paying a mortgage every month.
But you're paying rent every month.
Well, I tell them, I say, hey, look, you actually paying a mortgage every month.
Mm-hmm.
You're just paying
yours.
for somebody else's.
Yeah.
So you should stop doing that.
Yeah, I know. I do. That's really what a lot of people are like, what makes you afraid of buying a house? Well, what happens if something changes? What happens if my job changes? It's like, well, but at least you have your house now. It's something you can focus on. Rent is going up astronomically around town. It's crazy.
Nicole, when I was preparing to have you over for today's episode, I was thinking about how long we've been working together. And it's been almost 7 years, I think. Just crazy.
Has it been that long?
About 7 years.
That sounds right. Yeah.
So in other words, I know how to find you.
Yeah.
For people listening, how can they find you online?
Online, my Instagram is Nicole Bringard Realtor, and then Facebook, it's also Nicole Bringard Realtor, and Katie Real Estate, NicoleBringardRealtor.com.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to keep consuming your content, keep putting it out. Thank you for inspiring, being one of the main inspirers for this podcast. And as always, good to see you.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thank
for coming.
you.